This episode is sponsored by Fingerprint. Identify every visitor to stop fraud, detect bots, or delight customers.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today for a new episode of Journey into Fraud Prevention. I have very cool guest today. My guest today is coming from IT background and right now working in the company that's called Fingerprint. We're going to be speak about the company and the whole journey of Valentin during this podcast. I'm really excited to hear the story. And hi Valentin, how are you today?
Yeah, hi Ivan, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great that you find the time to join me today. Can you introduce yourself for people who don't know you?
Yeah, so I'm a web developer who I have a pretty diverse background in web development, backend development, a little bit of data science, and in the last few years I've been working to help the world solve fraud on web and mobile devices with the company Fingerprint.
What's actually motivate you to just IT industry quite popular nowadays, let's say like that, and everyone's so excited to work in continue to IT. However, the fraud prevention, the fraud industry, quite unique, specific area. Is it any particular reason why you decide to switch to this area, or just consequences happens?
I think actually IT and fraud prevention are very close to each other. They're related. And as a web developer, I had to deal with a lot of fraud myself with like fake account creation, online registrations, all kinds of coupon abuse. So I was for a while very interested in how to solve this problem effectively and how to reduce fraud in the web projects where I was personally involved. And additionally, I am very interested in just theoretical computer science. And early on, I kind of started looking into how cryptography works and how to work around cryptography and cryptanalysis and things like that. I wasn't satisfied with just being a consumer of like cryptographic primitives or things. I wanted to know how exactly a hash function works or how exactly this asymmetric encryption works. So when I was looking deeper into those topics, I kind of realized like cryptography is more or less a solved field. There is a lot of theoretical research, and where can I apply like my interests or my curiosity? And fraud detection, fraud prevention looked like a natural choice for me. And I was also active in like open source community for a while, for a few years, where I contributed to a lot of projects on GitHub and also built my own library called Fingerprint JS, which is kind of a hybrid between like security, fraud prevention, and user experience, and that's why I was drawn naturally into this direction after a few years of working with all those technologies.
And what fraud prevention actually mean to you, like from, I believe, more from a personal way in the first place? Because I understand from professionally, you did a lot of research and the people communicate to you, and if you face it with a problem of fraud, different kind of areas, and that's motivated move to that way. However, what's personally for you is fraud prevention?
Yeah, I'm personally very interested in making the world online experience a safer experience where there is less stealing money from people, because I was myself a victim a few times of different types of online theft, identity theft, literally lost a few times substantial sums of money where fraudsters were able to get to my personal information or convince me that I was a victim of social engineering. So I kind of took this personally, that actually helping online businesses to protect their users from fraudsters is a very important mission. And that's the reason I'm personally motivated to contribute to a safer world and the safer internet. And like I mentioned, this interest in like cryptography, computer science also helps me spark that to spark that interest, helped me in the past, and maintain that interest ever since.
One small follow-up questions which related to like fraudsters and how they're doing everything right now. So I also see that how professional they became in the past couple of years, because my first experience with the fraud prevention back like 12 years ago, it was like pretty simple. Most of the time people call you and they say they're from security from the bank, or they're from some I don't know, military or government organization, say you that you need to provide me whole full information. Nowadays they just like no still doing this stuff, because there's still a lot of people who happy to provide this information. However, I believe their opportunity to build kind of like schemas is more like increased and increased. I also see the same trend, or you see from different perspective. Quite interesting to hear from you.
Yeah, I agree with that perspective. Like historically, this unsophisticated social engineering was kind of the main mechanism, but over time, as access to first cloud computing resources, second to sophisticated fraud tools such as multi-accounting browsers and all kinds of open source projects, making it very easy to get started with fraud. It makes people be more ingenious, creative, and be able to generate very tricky schemes in essentially convincing the users they're dealing with real businesses or real people. All these phishing websites, all these kinds of websites lookalikes that make you think you're dealing with your bank or your social platform, and actually leave your username and password there, make me think that it's very easy now to pay a couple of dollars to rent some cloud computing capacity, then clone an open source project to automate your browser, buy a certain data set from like a shady website, and start crawling internet, or trying to submit forms, or trying to log in into other people's accounts, trying passwords, things like that. So I think it's very easy. It's kind of been democratizing over the recent time. And yeah, that's the reason why, like, and especially with AI now, like, it's gonna just get worse and worse from here, right? So we need to help the world to be prepared for the fraud. We need to learn how to deal with AI-driven fraud, where the perpetrator is almost indistinguishable from the real owner or the real person, and identifying a device uniquely, or identifying like a virtual machine uniquely where things are happening is important, and looks like the only viable solution to help the world prevent fraud in the future.
As we summarize it, that the fraudsters become more innovative because the access to the tools become easier, and AI gives even easier and a cheaper opportunity to build a lot of the logics and things. And this is how the using can scale up. And when we see any statistics from around the world, the fraud like scale up, the projection for a fraud like double in the next 5 years. So I believe it's going to be interesting year for everyone. Backing to your GitHub and Fingerprint JS, what actually motivated to launch Fingerprint in the first place?
At the time, it was 2011, 2012 when I first became interested in this topic. I was working at a company that was like a Russia-based competitor to Groupon, you know, the US group, collective coupons company. And they provided a coupon referral program and loyalty program coupons. So if you're a loyal customer and if you referred someone, you'll get more coupons as a result. And as you can imagine, this type of programs, they attracted a lot of fraudsters who impersonated other people, tried to erase their cookies, tried to pretend they're new visitors. As a result, we would give them a lot of coupons to like visit a swimming pool or a massage session or something like that. So we wanted to prevent that, and traditional mechanisms like cookies didn't work because they would just and that was the time, like 2011, when browsers started integrating like incognito mode. Like before 2011, browsers didn't have incognito mode. It was somewhat difficult to erase your like activity or make it look like you're a new user. You would have to like clear cookies and make sure like no network requests are saved, things like that. Within incognito mode, where you open it, I think Internet Explorer was the first browser, if I remember correctly, who introduced it. You would open an incognito session, and you would look like a completely new user to a website, and it was very hard to determine that that new user is actually an existing user that already applied for three coupon. So we wanted to make sure that things like that don't happen, and turned out like there was no easy way to do that. So that's when I realized like we need to invent something new, and I stumbled on a research paper by Electronic Frontier Foundation that actually explained that there is a technique called browser fingerprinting, which is when you combine enough attributes about a browser into a single identifier, that identifier is almost unique. With the like they said something like 94% unique. That was really intriguing. So I started digging into that direction and did some like POC tests. and determined that yes, it worked. And if you run a piece of JavaScript in a browser and combine a few browser attributes and form a single identifier by hashing those attributes, you would actually be able to identify most browsers uniquely and some common browsers semi-uniquely. This was a nice kind of outcome from the research. So I built the library, made it really simple to get started with because I wanted other developers to try it out. So I created a nice README file for that. Also posted a message on Reddit. Reddit are programming about this. And this combination kind of a easy to use library, a Reddit post that became viral, the problem with incognito mode that just started to become popular among fraudsters or unsophisticated fraudsters, it sparked that interest to the library and it became popular very quickly. And I was improving it, adding features, making sure like legacy techniques are not used, and constantly adding new techniques such as canvas fingerprinting, WebGL fingerprinting. And over time, this library became really, really popular. So that's kind of the history of the project.
So it was open Git project. So as you mentioned, everyone trying to get access because the first realize, oh, is it some functionality? So if we understand how it works, we're able to bypass it. Before we move it to this direction, like what was the next step? Actually, why you decided to build the company, not leave it as an open library? I have a question. Like most of my auditory, it's fraud professionals. However, I have some people who just very new in fraud prevention. Can you answer on simple questions? What actually is the fingerprint for people who not probably very technical?
Yeah, fingerprint.com, the company name is Fingerprint, is the world's largest and most accurate device intelligence platform. And that's a simple statement. What does device intelligence mean? Device intelligence is two things, and how Fingerprint provides device intelligence capabilities to the world. First thing is unique and long-lasting device and browser identification. We utilize many client-side and server-side techniques, statistical analysis, machine learning, to generate long-lasting and unique identifiers that can be used to detect account fraud, new account registration, enhance return user experience, and many other things that make fraudsters' life much more difficult. Second thing is smart signals. We collect interesting signals from mobile devices and browsers to tell our customers and users of Fingerprint platform that this device represents a potentially fraudulent or criminal intent. So we would collect things like if a device is using a VPN, what type of VPN, if they are likely automated, if they're a bot, if they're using a proxy, if they're on a Tor network. And we have now around 30 smart signals that provide very, very interesting information for both browsers and mobile devices that combined together can pretty reliably indicate that that specific device is about to do something fraudulent, nefarious, or potentially even criminal. And then you would actually use our unique identifier feature to identify that agent or that bad actor and store that in your database. And then when that bad actor tries to repeat their attack or do something again on your website or in your mobile app, you already know their identifier and you will actually be able to just ban them completely or present like a challenge, step up the authentication or send an OTP to their phone number just to verify that this is actually the legitimate person, or if it's not a legitimate person, then if it's a fraudster, you would challenge them in some way by stepping up the authentication or sign up process. So that's what, in a nutshell, Fingerprint does.
Let's say I have my mobile phone here. Someone stole it and they start to using abnormally. For example, they're trying to several times enter my passcode wrongly. I don't know, moving between application faster. They trying to, I don't know, open VPN connection on my phone. And for example, I'm using my bank account. So if any banks or any financial organization integrate with fingerprint, so this organization can get some kind of alert because the customer changed the behaviors from perspective of using devices.
Yeah,
Is it right?
exactly. Whereas previously they would see normal activity with no smart signals providing alerts. If your phone is stolen and is used for potentially account takeover attempts, then that bank by running Fingerprint API before each login and before each sign up, they will be able to see that how that device capabilities and device intelligence information is now very different from what it used to be, and determining that this is likely a fraudulent activity happening. Yeah, and like I mentioned, they would look at all these smart signal attributes to determine that, and also they would utilize our unique identification ability to remember that device and then challenge that device in the future or ban it entirely from accessing the website or the mobile application.
That's great. Feel much more protective right now from the internet. And I believe it's also work from another perspective. If I'm a person who like to using coupons, trying to use them on on the one website, I try to use my mobile phone using like VPN, incognito, etc. The sites or companies who integrate with you, they just like able to tell me that this coupon already used because I'm not a new customer, and they're able to prevent the things like I created multiple accounts using different emails and phone numbers and using same devices, because it's actually told them all of them related to one person, and they just instantly block me.
Yeah, exactly. So with coupons, companies want to maximize their reach. They maximize their reach of their marketing campaigns. Sometimes they don't want to create one-time coupons with coupon codes that work only once. They want to create reusable coupons and give them to a large number of legitimate consumers or potential buyers. But that represents a risk that those coupons can be shared by fraudsters multiple times or used by fraudsters pretending to be different people. So if a coupon company is observing multiple devices trying to redeem the same coupon using a fingerprint identifier, yeah, they can tell, we cannot redeem your coupon at this time. Please contact support to verify your identity, something like that, to make sure that this friction they introduce only applies to fraudsters, but all the normal legitimate users don't see any friction. It happens under the hood. When they try to redeem a coupon just once because they're a normal good user, the underlying platform will identify their browsers. It will detect the smart signals and also identify with fingerprint identification. And if they see it's only the first attempt to redeem that coupon, they will just silently accept the redemption process. There will be no friction for legitimate users. But for those who want to abuse the system, additional friction can be introduced by saying, like, you exceeded the number of redemptions, things like that, using fingerprint identifier as that unique lookup key, how you can detect multiple coupon redemption attempts.
I believe it's a great information for companies who actually generate coupons. And one more question about fingerprint. So, the fraud prevention market is, let's call it red oceans. For the past 5 years, I know it's already thousands of companies. Why is fingerprint such as in unique position to be the best on the market?
Yeah, it's a few reasons. Fingerprint is focused on developers. It has this open source origin, huge open source developer user base. Also, Fingerprint, it kind of democratizes access to fraud prevention. Before Fingerprint, companies would have to sign expensive enterprise contracts to even try a fraud prevention platform to integrate like bot detection, identification, things like that. With Fingerprint, you don't even need to have a credit card to try it free for 14 days. You go to our website, you start an account, you can try it out for 14 days without any limitations. And then at the end of your trial, if you still need more time, you can request trial extension. So that it makes it very, very easy for developers from all over the world to try Fingerprint and decide if it's a good product fit for them. On the product side of things, Fingerprint is unique because we're the only company in the world who exclusively focuses on identification accuracy. Our entire engineering and research team, R&D team, is focused on making identification in the browsers and in mobile devices as high as possible. Other companies, they try to build box products or like solutions that try to solve a fraud scenario entirely by blocking transaction, by monitoring financial transactions. As a result, for many businesses, device identification is an afterthought. It could be an add-on. It could be like an additional small feature that they add. because they focus on making their complete dashboard experience nicer. We, on the other hand, focus on providing high quality data at high scale to businesses that can call our APIs tens of thousands times a second for extremely large throughput, high volume scenarios. And we focus only on data. We, of course, have a dashboard too where you can visualize the data. But in Fingerprint's DNA, we always were an API first, data first, developer first platform that provides democratized access to fraud prevention technology.
Take my credit card number. I'm happy to sign in. And what's the future of the fingerprint in the next, let's say, 2-3 years? How you see the company growing, in what areas it's extend?
Yeah, in the future, we will do multiple things. One is to continue doing what we're already doing, faster, more accurate identification. That's going to be a huge focus for us. In addition to that, since we identify hundreds of millions of devices every month, we now have this unique ability to learn from that huge data set and predict anomalies and predict future fraud. So we are going to utilize our machine learning models, AI, more to be able to tell that even though this device today does not represent a threat or a potential fraud loss for your business, in the future, it's likely that this device will be representing a threat. When an anomaly happens, let's say your login page was used 300,000 times yesterday, but today it was used 200,000 times or 500,000 times. Is it an anomaly from fraud perspective, or is it just seasonal or temporal kind of pattern? With the data that we have, we'll be able to predict or reliably detect anomalies in your mobile apps, in your websites, and also utilize this vast device intelligence information to better predict if the types of devices that connect to your login page or perform money withdrawal or checking out from the cart are anomalous in how they look to fingerprint statistical engine. So it's a kind of a progression from detecting fraud to preventing fraud today to predicting fraud in the future.
It's incredible, and I'm really looking forward to see how it's going to be work, because I believe with a huge data set and the right machine learning or AI model, it's going to be very useful for a lot of the companies, especially right now. It's, as you mentioned, a lot of the box solution on the market, and not all of them providing the full specters. And since the world really mobilized nowadays, and a lot of businesses moving from the desktop to mobile phones, I believe it's going to be even more popular and interesting for a lot of the company to looking after. And since we are starting speaking about fraud, what do you think the most scary trends happens in the fraud prevention area?
The scary trends that are happening today, from my perspective, is anything where a high effort social engineering is performed with the help of AI. That's really scary. When fraudsters trick KYC, which is know your customer systems, by applying virtual masks on top of their faces to pretend they're not who they are, generating voice messages to convince their coworkers that they need access to a critical system, sophisticated phishing attacks that steal credentials from important company resources. Everything done at scale with AI, solving captchas, things like that. I think people trust other people. And when people don't know if they're dealing with AI bots, when they think they're dealing with people, is the scariest thing for me. So in terms of fingerprint mission, we want to make sure we're prepared for that. And we can tell our customers when they're dealing with people, when they're dealing with regular automation, when they're dealing with bots. With AI bots specifically. Because AI bots, they work on top of automation that already exists today, but they increasingly start to look more like normal people. And it's increasingly more difficult to distinguish them from normal people and how they do things, how they click their mouse, how they type on the keyboard, how they talk, what kinds of temporal patterns they use. It's not like dumb, robotic, repetitive things. it looks increasingly more and more sophisticated. So being able to tie that detection to a device that's performing that fraudulent activity with AI software installed on it, I think is very powerful because it gives us the ability to focus on identifying the device intent, whether it's automated in a more traditional way by like scripting, headless browsers, or in a more sophisticated way by AI tooling.
So as you mentioned, the fraudsters really want to become more like in normal people. So do you believe it's a reason why we see more and more account takeovers and everywhere it's spiking in news that account was compromised and companies like emerge about account takeovers? It, is it a reason because the fraudsters really realize for them it's two options: create new accounts, not very successful at all. Maybe it is still successful, but less successful as 5 years ago. Creating new great account, it's take a lot of the money and time. However, if they compromise account, they already have ability to use this compromised account to bypass a lot of the systems, etc., etc. What you thought about it?
Yes, definitely true. If I'm a fraudster, it's much easier for me to perform an account takeover attack at scale using all the tooling available to me and just silently access people's accounts and do nothing, just noting which accounts work and which didn't. I may not see a credit card number if I impersonate someone and log into their account, but I know, okay, I could do something about that account in the future. That's a very scalable, massive process that can involve hundreds of millions of accounts without you realizing that. And then surreptitiously, kind of those uh, accounts that were taken over, fraudsters begin to use them, like making small purchases from those accounts with items delivered or returned to other locations, selling information that they have, and doing other shady things. So definitely account takeover at scale is a much more lucrative process compared to creating accounts from scratch.
I believe we will see more and more cases like that. And then combining with the bots, payment fraud, AI, it's going to be a quite interesting future for fraud prevention, and I believe for fingerprint as well, because as hard as the case, companies start to looking for new approaches on the market. Even they working with some companies for a long time, they probably start to looking around and realize, okay, we need a company who just scale up email and have a huge data set. So I believe this is the reason why they start to consider fingerprints more and more as a company for resolve a lot of these issues.
Yeah, it's a good point. Looking for new ways, I think it's important because traditionally, bot detection companies relied on like network attributes, IP addresses, cookie values, things like that are very easy to go around. Then there is a behavioral analytics direction where you kind of listen to the activity that's happening on this user session. You record the mouse movements, the keyboard press patterns, things like that, or time based behavioral analytics, where you just report timings of things like going from page to page, URL changes. This is also kind of a subset of the behavioral analysis. But these things become less and less useful because with a behavioral analysis, you need to constantly monitor sessions for prolonged periods of time. And that is no longer working well. There is a higher expectation on the lack of forceful interactivity on fraud prevention. No one wants to click on 300 bikes in a capture anymore or pick all the bridges or buses. And that's a traditional, like, behavioral way of doing things. When you're clicking on the bus or a bicycle, the JavaScript will record how you move your mouse and determine if you're a bot or not. Customers and consumers are no longer happy with that. They want the system to work automatically without them doing anything. Especially on mobile captchas, they don't work on mobile well with the UI. They want to open a page, they want the page to verify them automatically. And you see that transition started to happen with less reCAPTCHA use and more Cloudflare green check mark automatically being drawn for you. You don't need to move your mouse. It kind of does it for you. So that's a nice improvement in the lack of forced interactivity. But customers want increasingly more. They don't want to see that green check mark. They want reduced friction. They want the page to be available to them automatically. And when they want that, fingerprinting is the best solution because it does it instantly. You need just like 200 milliseconds for it to work. You don't see any friction. You don't see any UI elements. You don't have to pick your mouse or swipe on your screen. It just happens instantly. And the website knows, okay, this is a safe device or this is an unsafe device. And users are happy. Approval rates are higher. There is less friction and more revenue for businesses ultimately. So I think the world is kind of past the recapture stage. The new maybe Cloudflare checkbox, green checkbox, is a new norm, but the world wants to move in the direction of completely invisible fraud detection.
My dream is a customer is a future without capture. To be honest, I'm sick of this like buses clicking, and especially sometimes you click it, say it's buses, but it's not at the end, and you over and over again. So I hope it's in the future for the customers. It's not going to be these click things, and as you mentioned, everything gonna happen on the background. I have right now the last topic that I really want to discuss with you. So I'm seeing LinkedIn fingerprint is hiring people. Can you describe who is the right candidate for the fingerprint? Who going to be successful candidate for passing all the interviews? What's probably motivation and knowledge going to be very useful for the company?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Fingerprint is a company that hires around the globe. We're fully remote. We hire in the US, South America, Europe, and Asia. And the types of candidates that we are looking for are problem solvers who have the curiosity and persistence to solve real fraud problems. Those who have interests in this ever evolving fraud detection and prevention industry know that fraud prevention and detection is a whack a mole that requires a lot of intelligence, perseverance, and those who want to help make internet a safer environment and buying, shopping online, doing online activities, an environment with less friction. But most importantly, I will kind of highlight that problem solving mindset with ability to persevere at solving a problem and having a curiosity in you to continue doing that. I think that's the most important.
And I believe you have kind of most important questions for you when you have interview candidate. What is Valentin key questions you ask during the interview with candidates?
Yeah, for my interviews personally, I'm very focused on fundamentals. I prefer not to ask questions about like React framework or Node.js or things like that. Instead, I focus on understanding the fundamentals of the internet, things that are true today and were true 10, 20 years ago. How does HTTP protocol work? What's a TCP handshake? What's a B-tree index in the database and why we need it? Things like that that have been around for 30, 40 years already that are unlikely to change. I call them fundamentals. They're not basics. They are very important to get things done. You can get things done with a socket and a network connection and a file to write to. You can launch a business on top of that. And if you know those fundamentals really well, you will solve any problem. Doesn't matter what kind of framework you use or what kind of database engine you use.
And I believe another important moments just candidates in the line with the company mission and the vision about like fraud prevention with the company going in the future terms and probably knowledge about what happens in fraud prevention in the general.
Yeah,
That's
that's a good point. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Fingerprint's mission is to power a safe and seamless internet through device intelligence. So we are focusing on making everything safe and at the same time reducing friction. So making your experience seamless and doing that through device intelligence. That's our mission. And how do we understand we are there? What does the world look like when our mission is accomplished? It's when Fingerprint provides the most accurate and insightful device intelligence signals to reduce fraudulent transactions, strengthen account security, and enhance user experience.
Since I believe you mentioned about machine learning approach, you also probably start to look in a lot of data scientists who happy to work with machine learnings and AI, and they have experience working in this area because I believe this is another stack compared to IT, which is like growing so fast, and a lot of people start moving there. So yeah, I would
Yeah.
say everyone who listens this episode right now, open Fingerprint first of all, be familiar with the platform, read about the mission, or listen it a couple minutes ago. Check out the platform. I believe this is very important and open for everyone. As Valentin mentioned at the middle of our interview, it's an opportunity to developers to explore opportunities of Fingerprint. And I believe everyone's super excited to looking forward for a future of the Fingerprint. And as you mentioned, machine learning for prevention fraud, and not only detecting this one. I believe the devices fingerprint is something a lot and a lot of companies need to looking for more and more, and they need to invest in that area rather than rule-based solutions, which is became less and less effective because you can't create a rule every 1 minute. I mean, you can, but it's not going to be work.
Yeah, if you're a data scientist listening to this podcast, I can tell you this Fingerprint product is like Shazam for browsers. So we recognize browsers by matching massive data sets. So if you're interested in that type of problem, come join us. We have an incredible data science team that can provide great onboarding experience. And you have the opportunity to really make the internet a safer place by joining Fingerprint.
Thank you, Valentin. It was a pleasure to speak with you today and hear a lot about Fingerprint. And I really want to send over this episode to my parents because for them, Fingerprint is something when you touch your finger to your phone, and this is the only
Mhm.
options that's how it works. So I believe it's going to be very upskill for everyone who very limited knowledge about what is Fingerprint doing. And yeah, looking forward for your future project.
Thanks, Ivan. Thanks for having me.